Today, we're going to be talking about betrayal blindness. What is betrayal blindness? How to recognize it? What to do if it's happening to you? It's been really powerful, even getting into the subject. I've been working through the book called "Blind to Betrayal" by Jennifer Freyd. "Blind to Betrayal" by Jennifer Freyd, and I'll tell you, it's been a very enlightening conversation. Enlightening. I've been actually listening to it. That's why I started to say conversation because I've been hearing it. And she talks about how we sometimes don't see what's in front of us. And it's actually kind of on a continuum of dissociation. She's found that by looking at people who have a tendency to dissociate, there's actually some tests that you can take to look at that would tell you whether or not you're prone to checking out psychologically or emotionally checking out. But betrayal blindness is a form of checking out. It's when something's right in front of you, but you don't make the conclusions that it's happening because it's too painful to see. Hey, and it's so good to have you guys join me. Thank you so much. I see On My Way on YouTube. I'm so excited that you're hanging out with me today, and we're going to be talking about betrayal blindness. Why we can't see what's right in front of us. Why we sometimes deliberately choose not to recognize the truth. I remember early on in the relationship, my ex had this thing that he did. He liked to claim that he wanted to go visit his son, and that because he'd been in other relationships and that because he tended to churn relationships, his son had decided as a young adult that he didn't want to meet the new women in his lives. Now I kind of understood that because I had a relative who did something similar. That every holiday, this relative would bring the new person he was dating, the new girlfriend, and I often knew that this girlfriend was going to be short lived, and that I probably would never see this person again. And it really frustrated me. So I stopped investing in getting to know the girlfriend. So when my ex told me that when we were dating, hey, my son's not doesn't feel comfortable meeting you. Not until we're married and we're really a relationship. I'd prefer to keep this relationship separate. I got it. I understood why he was doing that. But what I failed to here's what I this is what I showed betrayal blindness. When the first time that we went away together for him to meet up with his son, he spent the day with his son, and that night he came home and he got into bed dressed and he didn't brush his teeth, and I thought that was really strange. Like, why would he do that? I mean, you would think he'd want to get comfortable, right? And on top of it, he had no interest. He wouldn't even kiss me. He had no interest in being around me, and I thought that was so like bizarre. Well, it was only in hindsight when I got the rest of the picture that I had had a suspicion something was off with this person. And in fact, even before I this happened, I had actually hired a PI to investigate this question. This is my question that I asked this PI to check into. Was he still married? I mean, he'd been married multiple times, and I wanted to know that he was really divorced. Was he still married? That was my question. And the PI came back and said, I can't actually tell you if he's married or not married. It's very hard to get those records. But what I can tell you is he's living alone. The utilities show he's using enough electricity or whatever for one person. There's not multiple people living in the house. Oh, okay. By the way, I found out later he was married. I didn't know that until a few days before we were to get married. I found out he was married. But that's another story. So I had a gut instinct something was off and wrong, but I couldn't see this behavior as an indication that he was actually had met up with somebody and spent the day with somebody, and that he didn't want to like blend those two relationships on top of each other. He had enough wherewithal not to do that, which I'm thankful for that part, but I couldn't see it until the whole thing was over. So today we're going to talk about betrayal blindness, when you can't see what's really right in front of you. Here's a way it happens to a lot of us is if we grew up in a family where it's been with abuse in the family, you may have had parents who have not been very loyal to you. They may have betrayed your trust and maybe valued the relationship with other people over they valued you and your feelings and what happened with you. In the book Blind to Betrayal, there's a story of a girl who is being severely abused And yet during the daytime, this parent treats her fine. Everything's great. And yet then at night, she's at great risk. She can't see the fact that this parent is not a safe parent because she has nowhere else to go and she needs to belong and she depends on this family for everything. So as a result, she then just doesn't, she can't accept the fact that this is not a safe situation because then that would force her to have to do something about it. And she doesn't have any choice. She's a minor. So it happens a lot when we're kids, but it also happens when we're adults. So I'd love to talk about how has it happened to you, and now that you know that you maybe there's things you didn't see, what are you doing about that? How are you doing? And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. I have 20 years of counseling experience as a psychologist. These days I'm retired, but I just love to talk about psychology and everything related to it. And as most of you know, if you're familiar with my platform, I'm also a survivor of narcissistic abuse. So I'm just really thrilled that we're here together talking about this really tough topic because I'll tell you, it's when you don't see it, because there's different kinds of knowledge. There's things that you don't know. Then there's things that people think they know that they don't know. That's always embarrassing for them because everybody around them sees it. Then there are people who um, know what they know. You know what you know. And then there's things that you don't know. And that's one of these this falls into that list. This is one of those things that you don't know when you can't see it. In the book, Jennifer Freyd talks about how somebody gets brought up on charges of SA with children, with minors, and the partner, this person was living with someone, and the partner in that situation, there was literature around the house that was inappropriate right out on the coffee table. And the detectives went through the house and they asked her, "Hey, do you see this? Don't you find this offensive?" And the detective recalls describing this woman actually looking the material over, her eyes actually moving over the material that's inappropriate, and she literally doesn't see it. And she's like, "No, I mean, it's there. I don't, why? What's the issue?" And it was only years down the road, or some time had passed when she's able to go back and reflect, that she could pick up the same material and, like, how could I not see? This was so inappropriate. Why? How could I have not recognized this as inappropriate? So there are times in which we're faced a situation where we need this relationship. We're depending on the relationship, and we, as a result of it, can't see it because it costs us too much. And that's what she talks about. She talks about in this book why we can't see these relationships. What happens in these dynamics that cause us to overlook things. And the big piece of this is dependency. I know for me, when I was in that relationship, I had already made him a partner in my company. I was president, he was vice president. It was only the two of us. I had funded the company. I actually asked the attorneys for good advice, but they were foreign attorneys who didn't speak good English. They probably didn't understand my question. I got bad advice. I shared 50% of the company with a person who contributed zero. Now, anybody in the United States would say, "No, no, no, you don't do that." You'd get good legal advice, and they'd say, "No, you make him the percentage of the degree that they actually have skin in the game. No skin in the game, they get no percentage of the company. They have a lot of skin in the game, they get percentage of the company." But I didn't know that. So I built this company, had all the assets in it. We went out and made a bunch of purchases, started running the company, not knowing that I had essentially shared half of the assets, which I had never intended to do. And I have a feeling my ex knew it, and he never said anything too because he hoped that my vulnerability would then pay off to his benefit, which in a way it kind of did. So, when my situation was, I was now going over to run this company in a country where I didn't speak the language. I wasn't fluent. I knew a little bit, but not enough to run a business, not enough to hire people to do things for us. I was depending on my new husband to do those things. So you can see how much I needed him for me to have to seen the horrificness of what was happening, the severity of the degree that he was not faithful to me, that he was betraying me, would have really costed me not just the comfort of the relationship. Yeah, yeah, and that I know that even on social media we like to say, "Oh, well, just leave." Well, it's not easy because we get invested. We're emotionally invested, and it's not that simple. But it was more than an emotional investment, a relationship investment. I was invested financially. I was invested professionally with this person. So it makes it extremely difficult when we have a lot of dependencies on these relationships. So maybe that's also something to think about is what's creating the dependency in your relationship that's making it hard for you to take a really stark look, a very vulnerable, honest look, appraisal of this relationship. I've started watching. I know it's not new content, but you know that I love to watch watch media. I've started watching 90 Day I think it's 90 Day Fiance over on HBO Max. And these are people who are generally coming into the country who are looking to get a visa, but then they claim they are in love with this person. And there's one of the stories is so painful. It's the woman who lives in Sandusky, Ohio, and she's brought over someone from Tunisia. And it's, to the outside person looking at this relationship, you can see all the inequities that this person was really taking advantage of her gullibility and her vulnerability in order for him to get a green card. But when we're in the middle of that, and we feel like we want to be loved and we need to be loved. It's very painful to admit to ourselves that maybe this person is being opportunistic, that maybe their investment in the relationship is not the same as our investment. And if I have any moderators in the room, and Leslie, I'd be happy to make you a moderator. You can then deal with anybody here who's being a problem, because I know we have problems, and there you go. Leslie, you're now a moderator. So you're welcome to boot them if they're really inappropriate, and you're welcome to mute them for a few minutes if they're just mildly inappropriate. You're also just welcome to say, hey, don't do that. But if you guys don't know Leslie, Leslie is amazing, another content creator here that I love her vulnerability here, and I got to know her at the retreat. She went to the Rising Strong retreat in Mexico, which we're hosting one in October, called Strong and Unstoppable, and we're also going to go back to Mexico next February. So if you're looking to get out of the winter and you really want to grow and heal and look at these relationships, spend 5 intense days looking at how you interact, how you feel about yourself, how you define yourself. This is what we look at these retreats, and really consider checking out wellness recovery retreats. Wellness recovery retreats. So yeah. So I'm now going to start watching the comments. I haven't been paying attention, which is why I kind of caught Daryl being a little bit of a shit, but I also I was ignoring Daryl or Derry. I was ignoring him too. So have any of you ever experienced betrayal blindness, where you actually later, when you took a look at something and realized that you had failed to see the significance, that maybe you even kind of put up with stuff that you shouldn't have, that maybe you didn't connect the dots that was right in front of you, where maybe you were like 2 plus 2 was adding up to be 8 for you or 7 for you. If you would want to put a heart emoji in the comments to let me know this has happened to you. And I also would love to talk to you about it. Like what's happening that made you, Derry, I should have made you mod. That's funny. You're funny. Tori, what book did you just buy? Oh, you bought the Blind to Betrayal? It's a good book. I've been listening. I got the book, and I also been listening to it as an audio book. Yes. Okay. So a lot of you are starting to put hearts in there. What I would be curious, what made you see it? How, because like it's one of those things that you don't see, you don't know that you don't know it. So in the moment, you don't know. Um, I I was abused as a young child, and I never thought about the fact that all these adults around me weren't doing more to protect me, because I really loved them and I needed them. So I didn't put that together, that they hadn't been doing a good job taking care of me. So that's an example of betrayal blindness that happens, excuse me, that happens a lot to a lot of us if we grow up in a family that's not safe, that we experienced it as children, that we've had to put our trust into people who weren't making our safety their primary focus. Oh, yeah, that's Shiloh. That's fascinating that you have spent a whole day boning up on narcissism. I bet you may have a lot of questions then. I would love to hear what you're learning and how you're feeling about it. Hey, April, so good to see you. I really love that you're here today. And it's been wonderful getting to know you. So thank you so much for being in the comments today. So Elizabeth said, I dealt with my partner's addictions for 12 years, and I was there to support him, gave him the benefit of the doubt, regardless of how many times he cheated on me and lied to me and manipulated me. Elizabeth, have you heard the podcast Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse? Last year, Tara was my co-host, and Tara shared a lot about the fact that how she met her partner in recovery. This is not her current partner, it's her past partner. She met her current partner in recovery, and she had no idea he'd been using. She'd lived with him for years, and he had been successfully hiding the fact that he'd been using. She didn't see it. It wasn't until I think she found his stash that she knew that he'd been back up into it again. That in fact she'd even had surgery, and he offered to take the medication and actually like measure it out as a way to keep her safe. And now looking back, she realized it was for him to have access to the medication. That it never even crossed her mind that he might have had ulterior motives to what seemingly was a sweet request, that it really actually wasn't. There was nothing sweet about it at all. Oh, yeah, Shiloh. So the fact that you're now completely emotionally and mortally disoriented. Oh, yeah, I bet so many of us can relate that when you start to like stumble into the fact that you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship, that you're in a relationship with a narcissist, that it is completely discombobulating, that you're just stunned. Would you believe, Shiloh, that I didn't even, here I'm a psychologist, and I didn't even know what narcissistic abuse was, and I'm writing a book. So I actually, might be something you might find interesting. It's in TikTok Shop. Love You More. I was writing this book as a memoir, so it's kind of this like true tell all story of what happens, and I'm finishing the book, like editing and finish editing it, and that's when I came across the word narcissistic abuse, and it was like suddenly everything started to fall into place and start fitting, and things made sense, and it was like shocking to me how it so much made sense. And then I wondered, how could I have not heard of this in graduate school? How could I have a clinical psychology, Ph.D. in clinical psychology, and no one ever talk about the fact that with some personality disorders, they don't suffer, but everyone around them suffers. Everyone around them gets ill. That was the same for me. It was just completely just shocking to me how that can happen. Yeah, exactly. It ticks all the boxes, and you're just like, whoa, wow. I mean, and then to find out, so it almost feels like there's a playbook. And when you start to hear these things, like, yeah, they did that. Oh, they did that too. And you think when it's happening to you, you're like, this is so extreme. How could this is so weird? No, nobody's ever going through this. This is just outside the norm. Mine actually had a second life. He was living a double life, and gaslighting the hell out of me, just gaslighting the hell out of me, being very critical, passive aggressive, extremely deceptive, and I felt super crazy. Just like I knew I was like not doing well and getting worse and worse, but I didn't realize, and I knew he was. By the way, I also knew he was narcissistic. I knew that when I met him, but I had no idea that narcissism, being around somebody with this disorder, this condition, was going to result in me becoming crazy and having a problem. I had no idea that he wasn't going to suffer, but I was going to suffer because he wasn't dealing with his issues. I had no idea about that. Hey, so good to see you, Scrap Mail. I'm glad you're here, and thank you so much for tagging me and letting me know it was you over on Instagram. I really love that. I started, just for those of you who are aware, I know YouTube does not know because I've not shared it there, but I started a playlist. Now, some of you guys are adding songs so fast and so many of them, I can't add them all in. It's a lot. But I've added a lot of them. So if you like give me one song, I've made sure to try to at least add one of your songs. But I've created a master playlist called Done Me Wrong. I thought that would be a fun title. Done Me Wrong playlist of all the songs that you guys find that means a lot to you, that you listen to as sort of your go-to process what you went through, maybe to even have a moment of kind of reflecting of what it felt like. And I've made it public. It's called Done Me Wrong. And if you can find it on Spotify under B, and the B actually stands for Brad, my first husband. BK stands for Kerry McAvoy. BK McAvoy is the persona, is the handle on Spotify, and the playlist is called Done Me Wrong. So if you want to, have access to that playlist, which by the way, I've been listening to it, and you guys have an amazing song request. Really great things I've never heard before. I'm getting exposure to a lot of fantastic stuff that I'm really, really, really loving. So if you would like to be part of this shared playlist, look for BK McAvoy on Spotify, Done Me Wrong, and drop me a comment somewhere of what your song is. And when I get a moment, I'll try to keep adding more into it. It's already over 3 hours long, but I have no problem getting it up there to 10 hours if you guys want to add those songs. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, I'm reading something. I realize I never know the truth of the betrayal. Yeah, RW, your comment is really good. Is that sometimes, here's the thing, sometimes we'll never know the full extent of whatever actually happened to us, that we have to live with the unknowing. And that's really hard too. I would like to know some of that too. I have that sense for that as well. But I'm learning that I have to accept that I will never know the full picture of everything, and it's just not possible, and to find a way to give myself closure in a different way. So Nicola, you're asking, where can I buy my book, How to Leave a Narcissist, First Step to Leaving a Narcissist? It's right in the TikTok shop. So if you go into my profile and you go into my shop, there's 4 books, and thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to actually go through the books. um, you can't find, it's called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. I think that's, so the story, this is actually a story. Love You More is a story. So if those of you who want to know you're not alone, that you're not stupid for what happened, that you staying as long as you did and putting up with what you did, you're not unique. I do too. This is a story. It gives you what happens so that you know that this happens in these relationships. These are how these relationships look. It's written like a novel. It's not written like self-help. It's written like a novel. So if you even just want to read a novel, I want to warn you, it's graphic. I don't hide anything. I kind of tell you as it is. I know for some people that can be a little disturbing, but it's raw and uncensored, and I tell you exactly what's happening. And I'm so thrilled. I haven't done it yet. I keep promising. It has over 400 ratings on Amazon and a lot of ratings on Goodread too. And most of them are great, but there's those who hate it, and those are always fascinating. So I'm planning to do a live where I'm going to roast myself and read the reviews, and we'll have fun with them. So if anybody who's read the book and really wants to talk about it, maybe you have questions like, why did this happen, or why did you do this, or when did you know this? Watch for me. I'll advertise that live on TikTok. I'll make sure I advertise it everywhere. So anybody who's ever read the book or want to read the book or want to know more about the book or know what I was thinking about the book, you can share it there. And I have started a second memoir now, a follow-up. I have no title idea yet, but I'm going to do a follow-up that's more self-help and also then tell stories and reflective. So I'm going to do the things that I didn't do in that book, I'm going to do in the next book about my healing. So that's started, and I'll keep you guys up to date on how that's going. But here's the book I think you're talking about. You're talking about, I think, called First Steps to Leaving a Narcissist. This is a workbook. This is a how to heal. So if you're looking to really get to know what's real about your relationship, you're feeling confused, you can't tell the truth from fiction. They say they love you, but then they don't treat you like they love you. You just literally can't make a decision. You're paralyzed. Then this is the book you want to get. It is in my TikTok shop. I know for Instagram and for Facebook and YouTube, I put it in the links in the notes. So if you're looking for something like that, then if you're out and you're trying to heal, you want Surviving to Thriving. Lisa, Sunny, and I wrote this together. This gives you the 7 different steps, like roadmap to how to questions to ask. It gives you exercises to try. It literally helps you break the trauma bond, get through the cognitive dissonance after the relationship that's still confusing you, how to let it go, let the person go, how to make peace, those types of things. So you're looking for help healing. This is a way to help your healing. And then if you just want to understand exactly what you're going through and maybe even share it with other people, you use hoovering. What's hoovering mean? Or what's a reverse discharge? I'm sorry, a reverse discard. We have all this language that we just sort of throw out there. We assume everybody knows what it means. So if you're struggling, maybe I don't know, maybe I want an explanation, it's literally a glossary of terminology. Or this would be a really great way for something for you to give to a friend. This is what I'm going through. This is what I've suffered. Now, I didn't write this book. I did, actually I laid it out. So the interior, bragging on myself, I did the interior layout because I don't know if you guys know, but I've written 5, 6 different books, and I do all my own self-publishing. I'm my own publishing company. So I did the interior of it, but Lisa Sunny wrote this book, and I did the foreword. So I wrote the foreword, and she wrote the book. So those are some resources for you that may really help you. I've asked Lisa to send me the Trauma Bond Recovery Journal, so I will soon have that as also something that I'm offering in my TikTok shop for anybody who wants to just buy it and get a copy. So that will be available as well. So yeah, it's been years now, RW says, but I saw a close relative randomly and he grinned at me like we were playing you kind of a way. That's really tough when you have people who still kind of continue this process with you. April said, it's crazy to me that everyone around me could see it, but I didn't until the person had completely betrayed me and shut me out. Exactly, exactly. I think I was mentioning to you guys about that 90-day fiance, about that woman from Sandusky. Yeah, that's really tough because everyone around, I mean, watching the show, you can see this guy's using her, that he never loved her, that it was, that the relationship from the get-go was a scam. You can see it, but she truly cannot see it. It's so painful, very, very hurtful. What's Gray Rock cooking? Yes, I do have a publishing company. It's called the Stone's Roll Publishing. It's the name of the company. Get a hold of me. I do prefer it to be in a niche, and I obviously, because it's my publishing company, I also then I'm very careful about who I represent. But if you have something you'd like me to consider, I am open to possibly talking to you about that and helping you get published. If that's something you're looking for. I started writing in 2016. I published two books. They're both devotionals in 2010. Then I published another devotional in 2014. And then I actually have a book I'm sitting on that I've not published. I don't know if I ever will. It's about my late husband's battle with cancer and my struggle to become a widow. But it's very deeply personal, and I just haven't released it to the public. But I'm sitting on it. I need to rewrite it, but I'm sitting on it. Maybe someday. But then I also wrote Love You More, and then First Steps to Living a Narcissist, and then I co-wrote Surviving to Thriving, and now I'm working on the new memoir, which is interesting. It's fun. It's a lot of hard work. I'll tell you, this new memoir is a lot of hard work. So I got it all outlined, a rough outline done. I've got one chapter done, but and I plan to share it. I plan to publicly share it, write it, and share it. But I want to make sure I get several books done or several chapters done before I put anything out. So I'd hate to have you guys see a chapter and then wait 2 months and then see. I would rather release them more quickly. So once I feel like I'm on a roll, and I don't have a lot of time to write, which makes it also hard. Because when I wrote Love You More, I dedicated myself full time to that book. It took me a year, but I dedicated full time. So yeah, I know writing's a lot of hard work. So Asha, I'm so glad you got Surviving to Thriving and that you love. We just redid the cover, and I'm so happy with the new cover. It's a very beautiful cover. And in fact, it was a teenager out of UK created that cover for us. This is what it looks like. I don't have an example of what it looked like before, but this is, yeah, I love how pretty it is. I love the flowers, and I love the sun in the center. Kind of gives you so much hope. So if you're looking for a roadmap to recovery, again, it's in my TikTok shop. So yeah, Elizabeth, I think the world of Lisa and Tara as well, and also Rosanna, all my podcast co-hosts and guests. I love doing that. Yes, TFFF mentioned guilt. Yes, guilt is a strong card of manipulation in a female narcissist's deck of hands. Definitely. Very definitely, they do use that. What book has launched your journey, Sleepy Toe? And that's a great handle. Sleepy Toe. Oh, I'd love to know. I bet you there's a story behind your handle. It just reads story. So yeah, I'd love to know what book. So yeah, your writing's taken a back seat. I can totally understand how that can happen. So what questions do you have for me right now? You know, Lisa and I just taped 2 more episodes for the podcast, Breaking Free from Narcissistic Abuse. We taped today how boundaries don't work with narcissists, how they're so good at making everything an ultimatum and just really challenging the relationship every time you try to set a limit. And then the other thing we got into is passive aggressive moves, the different tactics that especially covert narcissists, but also female narcissists are very good at using passive aggressiveness as a way to sort of flip the switch and really make you to be the bad guy. So if for you ever had a friend, a female friend who's narcissistic, or maybe you're a guy who's been in a relationship with one, then you really know what I'm talking about. Oh, I'm so glad that Surviving to Thriving was really helpful. It, yeah, it is hard. One of the hard parts, somebody's talking about the fact that leaving means that your children have to be alone with this person because of the co-parenting situation. It is really, really hard. That doesn't make it, it does make it painful. I really want to challenge you though. Here's something to think about. You said, I can't leave because of this. I want you to think about this. When you're with them, you're actually not at your best. You are compromising you're learning to survive. You're all are walking on eggshells. So the you that you are is the chronic you who's unsafe. It doesn't feel safe to just be there. And so you're showing up in a careful way. And is that really the best kind of parent that you can be to your kids? Because you're teaching them that, sorry, but you're teaching them that the normal is a lack of safety and a compromised parent. So one of the things to have to kind of survive is by leaving, they get you back at your best. And then they get you to able to sort of show what it's like to be around somebody who now is safe and maintaining their safety. So it's just something for you to think about. I know that's really hard and never easy decision. Leaving is never an easy decision. How come narcissists can't be cured or get better in therapy? That's a really great question. I appreciate you asking that. The reason is multifold. Here's one of the things that we don't like as humans. We wish that things had a simple answer. We really want things to make sense, but people are complex, and we do things for a multitude of reasons. That's why even it's hard to research anything, because there's so many variables that confound. So these are some of the, I'm going to give you a whole host of reasons, MDC, why narcissists tend not to change. First of all, they struggle with self-reflection. So they have a core, and I know that even theorists debate about what is their core. Some theorists, like George Simon, says their core is predatory, and that they're very competitive and they want to harm other people, that they actually view the world in an aggressive way. Other people say their core is shame-based, and they feel so insecure and fragile that they're defending themselves rigorously. I think it actually doesn't matter which core they have, but both cores cause a lack of self-reflection. If you're predatory, you're not going to take accountability and you have no moral compass, then you're going to do whatever you want to do when you want to do it. I do think that does describe certain types of narcissists, but not all of them. But if your core is shame-based, then you don't want to face that, because you believe that if everyone saw it and you saw it, then you'd be not lovable and not choosable. So you heavily defend against that, so you can't take a look at it. But think of building a house. If you cannot take a measurement and know that something is 5 feet long, it's not 5'1", it's 5 feet long, then you're not going to have a house that's level. You're not going to have a house that's livable. You need to have self-reflection. You need to check. I mean, my dad always says, measure twice, cut once. If you can't check, then you can't actually correct anything. So that's their first problem, is because of this rigorous and rigid structure, ego structure, they are not, there's no there's no self-reflection, no ability to check on themselves and then be able to change. The other problem is that they're excessively self-focused. It's called mentation. When you look at their brain structure, the part of it that's concerned with how your perception of yourself and thinking about yourself and centering yourself, their brains excessively show a lot of activity. They're excessively focused on how everything relates to themselves. Now, this creates lots of problems. One of the problems with this is then you fail to see other people. If you're only aware of you and how everything affects you and what it means to you and how it's going to play out for you, then you can't see any other person in the world, because they don't exist. So that causes you to have objectification. You have objectified relationships with everybody. People become objects to you, not people. You don't see someone as separate with their own feelings and their own agenda and their own needs. All you see is how that person serves and relates to yourself. So again, that makes it very, very difficult to change, because change requires this awareness that you're not alone in the world, that there are other people and that they may have differing opinions and they want different things. And because of your self-focus, you're unable to see that. And because of your shame or your aggressiveness, you're unwilling to consider that, because then that would be a loss of power and control, because the way you're managing your safety is through power and control. So all of this creates an unwillingness to see what you could be doing differently. Here's the other problem. This is the way you've always been. It's the way you're wired up. Now, I'm autistic. I have no idea what it feels like to be neurotypical. I don't. I like my rigid schedule. I like listening to the same songs that I always listening to. I like eating the same foods every day, all the time. And I have no idea what it would feel like to be you because I see the world through this grid of autism all the time. Well, with narcissism, it's the same way. It's a grid that you see the world, and you literally have no perspective of any other way. So you don't see I don't see autism as a problem. I don't always like the way that I'm not always perfectly smooth in social situations. And yeah, when my schedule gets thrown off, it discombobulates me. But I don't see that as a problem with me. I see that as a problem with my schedule. See, I externalize how it affects me. Narcissism externalizes the problem. It isn't that they are rigid and inflexible and that they are excessively self focused. It's that you want too much from them. It's that you expect them to actually be accountable. It's that you actually want what you want. How dare you be an autonomous person? So all of that then creates this problem of then they can't see the fact that they're impacting other people. All of this then creates blindness. And if you have this kind of blindness, then you're not going to be able to change. That's why they don't change. Could they change? Yes, but it's very hard to see what you don't see. And you don't see that you're the problem. You see everybody else as the problem. And you're very good at you're so good at defending yourself. You do it so rapidly, so instinctively that you don't even know that you're not actually showing up and really you're not showing up. You don't know that you're actually not being intimate, that you're not being vulnerable. You think you're being normal and you think that everybody around you is the problem. That's why they don't change. So we really, could they change? Maybe with a lot of hard work. None of us change easily. How well does change work for you? I mean, even changing your diet or adding more water to, drinking more, even getting more sleep. It's hard work to do these like simple things that don't have to do with you as a person. We have a hard time doing that. And we're asking them to overhaul their personality. We're asking them to care about other people's feelings when they excessively mentate about themselves. How do you do that? I don't know how you do that. It's literally like a blindness. They don't know how. I mean, that's why we say they don't change. It's very, very difficult. So that's why the prognosis is so poor for them, unfortunately. And here's the other thing. People say it's rare. It's not a rare condition. It's not. It's just rarely diagnosed. I just had another example. I was trained in graduate school. I know you guys get all upset every time you hear me say this, and I've said this before. I was trained, don't bother diagnosing access to diagnoses. Don't bother, which is a personality disorder. Don't bother giving someone a personality disorder. One, insurance does not pay for treatment for a personality disorder. There's no insurance for that, no reimbursement, no mental health benefit for a personality disorder. So why give it? What purpose does it serve? It's not depression, it's not anxiety. The other thing that we're told is this is a lifelong condition. So you're basically saddling this person with a very negative condition. So why would you do that? Because this goes on their insurance record that follows them. You're now if anybody ever gets a hold of this insurance record, this medical record, they has this on that may impact their ability to get certain jobs or maybe who hires them. So don't do that to them. And so as a result, we don't diagnose people who come into the office, but they usually don't come into the office. So one, they don't see themselves as having a problem, so they don't get help. And number two, clinicians are told in school not to bother to diagnose them. So it's not that narcissism is rare. It's not rare. It's just rarely diagnosed. So the rates that you see statistically out there, that's only those who get a diagnosis. And most of them never do. So it's actually not an accurate number. And it's silly that we say, oh, well, we're talking a lot about a condition that actually doesn't, it's only 1% of the world has it. No, 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 no. In fact, I've heard some creators thinking that it's upward to like 20, 30% of the population in the world probably has this. And I actually wouldn't think that's too off, actually. I think it's a lot more people than we think. So, okay, I'm skimming through the questions and comments have come in. So William Smith, you're spamming here talking about the fact that you can do this hacking that's actually illegal. And when I catch that you put stuff on my posts like that, I actually block you and delete your comments. So I will look for you, William Smith, and block you and delete you from this chat. I highly recommend that you not spam my account to try to market yourself. Please don't do that. Toxic people weaponize their depression or anxiety as an explanation why they have a short fuse, or why they do what they do. Yeah, they're very good at that. They love to kind of, that's one of the ways they off blame. What happens is they say, well, I can't help myself, I'm hungry, or I'm tired, or I'm made this way, or I have this problem. But here's the thing, that doesn't allow us to be, yeah, Leslie, it's not on your end, it's on Facebook. It's being human, being kind, showing compassion is something that we all have an opportunity and choice. We don't get to just show up whatever way we want to show up. That when they're doing that, they're actually asking you to excuse them from treating you with respect. But I'll tell you, I'll have a feeling if you were disrespectful to them, Elizabeth. So if you treated them in a way that affected them. I remember one time mine went to go get his favorite snack at the grocery store, and I realized that we didn't have anything in the house that I could snack on, so I wanted to stop and go get mine. And he was in a rush. He was like, you can just go get it another day. On the other hand, he made the whole world wait and stop for him to get his snack, but we can't do the same for me. So that's kind of the lack of reciprocity. So I have a feeling, Elizabeth, that if it was you who then expected that kind of mercy, understanding, grace, you would never get it back. Never. Oh, Amy, I am so sorry that your elderly husband were a victim of a narcissist for 2 years and that he stole so much from you. Yeah. Oh, I agree. So like, it's see what you made me do exactly. But on the other hand, if you pulled anything similar to that, they would very much make your life miserable for that. Very much. I agree. Go back to the why don't they get diagnosed? Why are clinicians taught not to diagnose? First of all, the problem is getting them in the room. And yes, maybe it would have been helpful, but yeah, I know. There's a lot, I guess I'm saying a lot has to change. A lot has to change for us to really truly see narcissism as a serious problem that it is. I have a feeling if we were to begin to estimate the amount of money lost or spent on mental health services, lost time from work, cost to custody issues, all sorts of problems like this, like just what you brought up, Coach Maria, all the way that narcissism affects the workplace, the way that it shuts down or causes disruption or loss of valuable employees. I have a feeling if we really were to add up the tremendous costs that there are, that we would be shocked. I once took just the statistics. I used the latest government statistics of antisocial personality disorder along with narcissistic personality disorder, added them up, used United States Census, and times that with the number of people that person's likely to have in their life, which I'm thinking roughly at least 10 significant relationships, probably way more. I'm probably way underestimating that. I figured out there's roughly in the United States, which only has, I don't know what, 300 some million, 350 million people in it. I estimated there was like over half of the population has been impacted by narcissistic abuse. Over half. So yeah, the amount of money that the way that it's costing us financially is enormous, enormous. We nobody's ever bothered to figure that out, and I have a feeling it would be in the billions. It would be a lot. Is this straightforward to diagnose, or can a narcissist manipulate the diagnosis? So to get a diagnosis, there's 9 criteria, and you have to have a minimum of 5 in order to be clinically diagnosed. Now, yes, you could go into an office and you could present and share stories and talk about your life in a way that never shares any of those 9 criteria. But the way you're going to treat the clinicians, here's where it takes a good clinician from not so good a clinician. So a good clinician will pay attention to how you treat them in the room. So a narcissistic person will fuss about the cost. They'll do some weird thing around the money. They'll want special favors with the appointment. They tend to run the appointment over and take up more time. So you'll see abuses to the way they handle the relationship. A good clinician pays attention to that. Oh, and by the way, they're also super touchy in the room. So if you say a reflective statement, like they share something that happened in their life, and you said, wow, it sounds like that must have been frustrating. They're like, no, it was irritating. It was irritating, not frustrating, irritating. So you start to see that kind of behavior from someone. You should, as a clinician, say, oh, this person is showing, this is a lot of sensitivity, a lot of entitlement. They want special rules. They think they're different than the rest of the world. You start to see it in the room. Now, But are all clinicians able to do that? No, unfortunately, they're not. They're not all, we're not all the same. So that may be a problem. So it's possible. That's what I guess I'm saying. It is possible to go in and fool somebody. But it but if you got a good clinician who's used to spotting it and knows how a narcissist makes you feel in the room, then you'll get better at learning to identify and spotting it and being able to see it. Another question came in that was really, is it caused by childhood trauma? Well, here I always love to answer this question by the backward way. The backward way is how many, I got to hear Dr. Vander Kolk, the author of Body Keeps the Score, speak at a conference. I was at the Psychotherapy Networker that's held every March in the Washington, D.C., and he is a regular speaker. So if you ever want to hear him live, you can go, anybody can go do this. You can go and pay and go. It's amazing. So I got to hear him speak, and he's talked about, because he's a researcher in trauma, that 80% of the United States has had a major experience of trauma. 80%. Now, if you use this government stats that says roughly upwards to only 7% of the population is narcissistic, yet 80% of us have had trauma, that's a really poor correlation. They're not jiving, right? Shouldn't, if 80% of us have experienced trauma, then shouldn't 80% of us then have be narcissists or closer? Not 7, 80? But we're not. So that's a quick way to be able to I don't see a strong connection. Now you could say, but Kerry, that's any trauma. He's talking about any trauma at all. They're not talking about childhood trauma. Okay, so you still do that, but you're still not going to find a really good correlation. They actually have done the studies. The answer is no. Childhood trauma is not the leading cause of narcissism. It's actually more complex than that. We don't really know the exact cause. I have a feeling what we're going to discover because of being with people, spending time in the room, really getting to know personalities, that we're going to find it's multiple reasons, for multiple reasons. I think sometimes there's definitely just a different, can't say the word, dispositions. Some of us have dispositions that are kind of prone to that. We have vulnerabilities that lean into that direction, so it's genetic. I think you're going to also find, they have found a correlation with highly entitled parents who treat some kids like a pampered, like a little prince or princess, and really pamper them and make them feel special. Never teach them to wait on other people, makes them kind of like the rules don't apply to them. You tend to more likely raise a narcissist. I also think that there's certainly in some abusive homes where there's a very strong power and equity, when there's like a heavy-handed parent who's highly abusive, who's domineering and intimidating. I think some kids may see that and then feel like, wow, that's the way to go. There's at least safety in that, and they become more narcissistic that way. But I think there are lots of reasons and lots of ways people become narcissistic. Now, here's the other thing. Can you become a narcissist as an adult, or is this something? No, it's something that it's part of your personality. So as your personality grows, these things become enduring characteristics of who you are. It's not something you can wake up and you're 40 and suddenly become that way and you were never that way before. If that happened and you came in and saw me as a clinician, I would say, you suffered a injury, a brain injury. This is why this has happened. It's an organic result, not just because suddenly you became, people don't suddenly become narcissistic. They're that way. They've been that way for their whole life. Correlation doesn't mean causation exactly. The different things between correlation and causation is this. Cause is directly, you can say, I eat food, I'm no longer hungry. The food filled me up. My hunger was satiated by food. Direct causal relationship. You can see the impact of something clearly. Correlation means it tends to occur together, or there's a connection, maybe not a direct cause. Like, for example, smoking causes cancer. No, it doesn't. In some people, it causes cancer, but not in everybody. Some people have a propensity of vulnerability that when you smoke, you're more likely to have cancer. Other people of us don't. So you could smoke your entire life and never get cancer, but then on the other hand, you may be someone who's just around smoking and get cancer. So do I think TBI causes MPD? I don't think anything causes MPD. I think there's a lot of, I think the cause is really is very difficult to know. So Phoenix Rising says, my sister said she learned to manipulate to avoid abuse from our dad, and she's highly narcissistic. I also suspect, by the way, Phoenix Rising, that your sister had characteristics that made her lean in that direction, that she had a temperament that made sense to her. So I have a feeling that she had a psychological vulnerability, but then she also, on top of it, the abuse made it even worse. Because your dad was the same to you. Are you narcissistic? No. What's different between you and her? Well, yeah, you're not the same. You weren't born in the same order. You had a different experience than her. But I also have a feeling that the other thing that's different about you is that you're not her. That you're different than her. So there's lots of reasons that play. There's the thing that really we like simple answers. When it comes to a person's personality, there is nothing simple. It's extremely complex, extremely. There's going to be lots of reasons why people are the way that they are. It's not just one variable. So, yeah, correlation. So, when I talk about correlation, we're talking about predictability, research predictability, like likelihood. We're not talking about actually making it happen. So I'm going back. Leanne, you tagged me. What were you tagging me about? If you're still here, I'm going backwards and trying to find what you guys have said. Here's another great question that came in. Can a marriage to a narcissist be saved? Phoenix Rising, I have a feeling that you had just had a different personality. So your personality wasn't prone to narcissism. So that was why, there's lots of variables that went on in that. Yeah, you said you're polar opposites. So can the marriage with a narcissist be saved? Well, any marriage is salvageable. It really depends upon what you want out of the relationship. If you're wanting, okay, say that you're married to someone who's narcissistic and they provide a home and they do maintain a job, they're able to do that. A lot of them can't, but the person you're in a relationship is able to do that. They're able to do at least the minimum of what you're looking for, and you're not looking for an emotional connection with this person. You're also not looking for someone who's compromises and knows how to handle conflict with you. Probably is not a very good parent. If you're willing to make all those compromises, you can make this relationship work. Yeah, absolutely. It's just about your expectation. Now, most of us go into a relationship and we have the expectation that we want a person who's collegial, cooperative, works to the benefit of the relationship, shows love, and invests, who's vulnerable, who, even when they're intimate with us, they actually see us and take pleasure with us, not take pleasure from us. No, no, you're not going to have a relationship that's like that. That's not very possible with them. So it really depends on your expectation. Are they always abusive? Well, if you look at the 9 criteria and really think about what it would be like to live with someone with any of those criteria, they're actually not fun. They're not fun. Take entitlement. Is abusiveness entitlement abusive? Yeah, actually, subtly it is. Because if I think that you aren't worthy of even the fairness of what the food in the house, and I then just clean the house out without any consideration of you, if I walk ahead of you and let the door shut on you, I mean, yeah, that's kind of forms of abusiveness. It's hurtful. So, so if you take any of them, you're going to find that there are ways in which you could express that characteristic that's not kind, not compassionate, not cooperative. And I consider anything that disrespects me as a human being, anything that sees me as objectifies me, and I see that as abusive. So maybe part of it is our definition. Maybe our definition is different. Vienna, I love the fact that you love my playlist idea. I haven't published it on YouTube, that idea yet. I will, but I will definitely add your Kelly Clarkson's chemistry. Is there a particular, people are also telling me albums. I'm not going to add a whole album, but if you can tell me your favorite song on chemistry, I would love to add it to that playlist. So anybody who may not know, I have a playlist that I'm running that's public. You can find me. My handle on Spotify is BK McAvoy BK McAvoy. So B for Brad, that's my first husband's name. K for Kerry. Oh, mine. You like mine. Okay. I'll have to make a note of that. And so BK McAvoy on Spotify, and the playlist is called Done Me Wrong. Done Me Wrong. Public, I'm adding songs to it actively. I love the fact that I had that idea yesterday. So you said Mine by Kelly Clarkson. So I'm going to writing that down so I don't forget. I had that idea yesterday of how much I love my songs. That kind of like I like listening to them. And Rosanna Faye had just shared with me one called Ice Cream Man by Ray. If you guys not heard, oh man, it's powerful. And there's a new one coming out that's being released in May that Lisa has been sharing with me. I don't know the name of it. The creator is like letting bits and pieces of it out there, and it's been really, really wonderful. It's going to be amazing. So Jill said, "Wow, this is really hit hard. What hit you so hard, Jill? Sound and soul. What part of that really hit you?" Yeah, I agree with you. Scrub among male, I consider the failure to respect my autonomy as a human being and respect my needs and wants as equal to your own is abuse. That's what I consider abuse. So Keisha, praying is another one. So I'm having to write over. I may have that one already. Someone may have already added that one because I recognize the title, praying. I do have one called Praying, and another one, the band Human Experience called the song called I Like You. The band is Human Experience, and it's called I Like You. So look for it, guys. I'm creating this for all of us. So this is our collective shared list. And I've been listening to this list, man. You guys really have amazing songs, songs I've never heard of. I just really love it. I appreciate that so much. I've got 5 more minutes before I need to wrap it up today. What else would you like to talk? Yeah, I do too. It's been a lot of fun. You guys are exposing me to people I've never heard of before. This list is listed on Spotify, Kate. So it's on Spotify, and it's called Done Me Wrong. Done Me Wrong. Look for B.K. McAvoy. B.K. McAvoy. You can find the list. It's public. You guys can join the list, take advantage of it. B.K. McAvoy. So, Jules, Sun and Soul, you said everything you said about the disrespect and the door closing and the walk ahead of you. Yeah, exactly. People said, is that abuse? I mean, are we really making a mountain of a molehill? Okay, so someone thinks they're a little more entitled. So they think they're superior than other human beings. Maybe they're not the most empathic person in the world. Well, do you want to really live with a lack of empathy? Yeah, Spotify, unfortunately, I don't know if I know there's a paid version of it, Scrub Along. Yeah, I know, I always call you that, Scrub Along. I know you don't mind that. And hey, I will now I know your handle on Instagram. I will send you the how to sign up for that men. Yeah, Spotify. There's a version that's free and there's a version that's not free. I think is how it works. But I'll send you that link to the men's focus group because I want to hear your opinion on it. So, which therapy is best for issues for having been raised by a narcissistic mom? Oh, that's a good question. I would recommend insight oriented therapy. Insight oriented. Want somebody who has some experience with personality disorders, definitely. I also I would recommend maybe some EMDR, depending on how much abuse you might have experienced and trauma. That will really help you with the trauma. Yeah, same for you with ASPD, definitely. My grandmother, I think, was ASPD. I think she was an antisocial personality disorder. She actually urged me on the first job that I was going to have to lie to their face, and that she would go in and sneak in and do the job for me when I couldn't. Uh, no, I am not doing that. I am not doing that. So I didn't. 10 steps to get over your ex, Tori. Okay. 10 steps to get over your ex. Um, but yeah, so I would recommend insight oriented therapy with a really solid, good therapist. I think that would be a really great kind of. My husband always steamrolls with projection when I try to tell him how he's hurt me. How do you navigate it? I hate to tell you, Sierra, that the best way to get that. By the way, Jules, that recommendation is for you healing, but not necessarily for the narcissist. I wouldn't recommend that. Won't work for them. I've done insight oriented work with narcissists, and I haven't seen any change. It takes quite confrontive therapy, and you have to look for a specialist in that area. Yeah, yeah, and you're in Texas too. Have you checked the Psychology Today for a listing? Now I know that people who are on it have paid, so you're missing a lot of other people, but that would be one way. Oh, you're in Michigan. Where? Well, DM me over on Instagram where you are in Michigan. Did you know that I'm from there? I know Michigan, so that's where I grew up. Yeah. Um, but yeah, projection. Your husband's using projection, how to navigate it. My hard advice for you is that to become less concerned with his projection that's inappropriate and harmful to you, for you to ignore it, become emotionally detached from it. You already do this. When your kids think that you're the worst mom ever, and you know they're not, they're just mad at you because you're not letting them do what they want to do or maybe play video games at night. You don't take it personally. You just like, yeah, well, they're having a space. We need to do that with toxic people too. That when they harm us and attack us personally, we need to then see that, know ourselves well enough to know that it's not true. Miss you more. I think I got that one, but I'll make sure to add it. Miss you more. I love that name. That name, the last name sounds like ballerina. Um, ballerina. I don't even know how to say it, but I know I have one of other ones of hers on that already. So your mother is in palliative care, and I'm having really conflicted feelings. Oh, that's a lot. That's a whole lot to go through. It does create a lot of ambivalence. Like you're sad and you're grieving, and your hopes and dreams of what you could have with this person may never fully be there, and you're losing so much, and and yet they're a difficult person to work with and difficult to be around. So, oh, that's super tough, very tough. Well, I'm glad, Sarah, that helped. Yeah, it worked on emotional disengagement. I want to warn you, though, emotional disengagement is the first step starting to get ready to leave. It's a way that you're cutting your feelings off. You're ceasing to look to that person to really to put into you, invest in you. So, yeah, it's really hard. Yeah, and the Love You More title, yeah, it does remind me of that too. Miss You More, Love You More. All right, you guys. Hey, it's 5 o'clock. I need to wrap it up. And for those of you who don't know, I always jump into a toxic free relationship club. I do this for with them, small group, face to face. We do this in person. We have what's group coaching. So if you're looking for more support and you want to do this with me, want to get this kind of input and advice, really consider becoming a member of my Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's an amazing group of people. We have the community level, which is the chat piece, but if you want the coaching and all the access to the past webinar, past access to all the online stuff, then you want to join at the club level. And I'd love to see you guys there. I have the links in my bio for that. And do check out my TikTok shop for those of you who are on TikTok. That's where all the 4 books that I talked about are there. Not Blind to Betrayal. That's you can get that on Amazon, but the rest of it is. All right, you guys, you have a great rest of the day. I'll be back next week. Next week, we're going to be just taking your questions. I'm going to not come in with an agenda. I'm actually going to just come in and talk about narcissism. So if you have a question that I've not addressed, I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to take your questions. So come back next week, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and I will talk everything you may have ever wondered about narcissism. All right, you guys, I'll see you then. Bye bye.